If you want to buy a phone, you think iPhone. If you want to buy a chocolate, you think Cadbury's Dairy Milk. And if you want to buy an electric car, I bet you've thought about buying a Tesla. And a few years ago, if you were looking at an EV, the Model 3 was an easy recommendation. But now, here in 2024, when there are so many other choices available to you in all different shapes and sizes and in almost every price bracket, is this still the top choice for petrol-free motoring? Well, it just so happens that I've been living with this Model 3 for a week. But it's not just any Tesla Model 3. This is the performance. The quickest accelerating, most expensive, and most hyped of all the Teslas available in Australia. So come with me and let's see what all the fuss is about. Gone are the days where you have to spend six figures to get a well-equipped and future-proofed electric car that has decent looks and an even better driving range. But to put it another way, good EVs are getting cheap, and nowhere is that more apparent than with the Tesla Model 3.
At the time of filming, the lineup kicks off at $54,900 before on-road costs for the rear-wheel drive variant and moves up to $64,900 for the long-range all-wheel drive.
This top-spec Model 3 Performance, however, commands an $80,900 price tag, which might seem like a lot to spend on a Mazda 6-sized sedan, but it has a party trick that not even cars 3 times as much can match.
But before I reveal the trick, let's have a look at what you get for your spend.
Highlights in the Tesla Model 3's equipment list includes power adjustable front seats with heating and cooling, a synthetic leather interior, tinted glass roof, dual wireless smartphone charger, keyless entry via the Tesla smartphone app, an 8-inch rear passenger touchscreen, and a 15.4-inch infotainment touchscreen. However, unique to the performance are 20-inch forged alloy wheels, front sport seats with ludicrous badging, carbon fiber dashboard, metal pedal covers, adaptive sports suspension, and uprated brakes with red painted calipers. Not all of this equipment is great though, and I'll run you through some of the compromises a bit later on in this video.
Oh, that party trick that I mentioned? This car has a claimed 0 to 100 km/h acceleration time in a scarcely believable 3.1 seconds, making it quicker than almost anything else on the road. In fact, if you wanted to go quicker, you'd have to spend well over $300,000 on something like a Porsche Taycan Turbo, or something wearing a Ferrari, McLaren, or Lamborghini badge. In terms of sheer performance value, the top dog Model 3 is simply unbeatable. But if you didn't care about going as quick as possible in the shortest amount of time available, even the more affordable versions of the Tesla Model 3 offer plenty of potent performance. But just how can the Tesla Model 3 Performance offer up such prodigious, well, performance? It all comes down to its dual motor all-wheel drive setup, which outputs 380 kilowatts and 740 newton meters, at least in the US. You see, Tesla Australia are a bit vague about the outputs of its cars, and the Model 3 Performance is no exception.
It quotes 343 kilowatts on its website because Aussie cars are a little less powerful than the US cars due to a different battery pack. You might see a figure of 461 kilowatts quoted online. That's the maximum combined output of its front and rear electric motors, but the battery can't actually supply that much at any given time.
Confused? Well, all that really matters is that ludicrously quick 3.1 second 0 to 100 kilometer acceleration time. And on a racetrack, it's 261 km/h top speed. And you'd think that all of that potent performance would come at a cost, but not only is the Tesla Model 3 Performance one of the quickest EVs available in Oz, it's also one of the most efficient. With an official energy consumption rating of just 16.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, this car is more efficient than some versions of the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Polestar 2, despite those models being less potent.
In my time with the car, after much testing of the various drive modes, I managed to average 17.4 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, coming damn close to the claimed figure.
With a reported 79 kilowatt hour battery, again, Tesla does not provide an exact figure here.
The Model 3 Performance features a maximum driving range of 528 kilometers when tested on the WLTP standard.
When fully charged, the Tesla Model 3 Performance showed 516 kilometers of driving range on the dashboard. And even accounting for variables like weather and air conditioning that might sap a few kilometers here or there, a more than 500 kilometer cruising range should be more than enough to get you through your working week.
And when the battery does start to run low, this Tesla Model 3 Performance is capable of fast charging up to 250 kilowatts, meaning downtime is pretty short. In fact, when using a Tesla supercharger unit, it can recharge from 10 to 80% of its battery in around 30 minutes, which is barely enough time to head into the shops for a poke around.
The caveat though is that superchargers and public charging in general can be hard to come by depending on where you live, and you will be fighting the thousands of Tesla customers and EV owners for a charging space. Still, this remains the hurdle for anyone looking at EV ownership right now and isn't unique to the Tesla Model 3. So be sure that you can at least have access to reliable charging at home or work before committing to an electric car.
There's two types of people in this world. Those that can tell the difference between an iPhone 15 and an iPhone 11, and those that don't care. And if you're the former, I'm betting you've got an opinion on the Model 3's styling. Tesla has opted for a less is more approach to the Model 3 performance, with very few distinguishing features to clue you in on its performance potential. Starting at the front, the 2024 Model 3 Performance wears the updated Highland styling upgrades, which includes slimmer headlights and a smoother bumper. But unique to this grade is a full width splitter that makes the car look lower and more aggressive, as well as extra cutouts in the bumper to divert air. From this angle, the only thing to distinguish the performance from the rest of the Model 3 range are unique 20-inch wheels and red painted brake calipers. I do kind of dig the rakish profile though, that makes it look a lot less like a traditional 3-box sedan and more like an egg. From the rear, the C-shaped taillights and new Tesla badging keep it in line with the updated Model 3 that launched earlier this year. But keep an eye out for that subtle diffuser and this carbon fiber spoiler before thinking you can take this car at the lights. The biggest giveaway that this is a performance variant, however, is this ludicrous badge, which, to me at least, looks a bit like a monochrome Union Jack from a distance. No?
Pop the boot and there's a cavernous 594 litres of storage available, which is plenty big for golf clubs, a full-size pram and more. There's also a handy underfloor storage cubby, which is even big enough for carry-on sized luggage, or for stashing anything you don't want rolling around in the boot.
But because of its sedan shape, it isn't the easiest to load anything big or cumbersome into the rear end of the Model 3. Height is the biggest impediment here, so if you're planning a trip to Bunnings or IKEA, you're better off taking an SUV or a wagon.
The rear seats also fold down to liberate more space, but to what extent, Tesla has not revealed. Though you are still hampered by a small pass-through between the boot and cabin.
As an electric car with a low-mounted battery pack, the Tesla Model 3 also features a front boot area, which can accommodate 88 litres of space, good enough for a backpack or groceries. It is also worth noting here that Tesla does not include a home charging cable with the purchase price of this car, nor does it feature a tyre repair kit, let alone a spare wheel. As for interior practicality and comfort, it's good. Excellent, in fact, for a car of this size and shape. Here in the rear seats, I've got plenty of leg, head and shoulder room for my 6-foot-tall frame, and the seats are both plush and supportive.
And the flat floor makes it easier to fit 3 passengers back here, but you'd probably only want to fit 2 in the second row, especially if your occupants are adults or teenagers.
Amenities back here include a door pocket that will accommodate a large water bottle. You've also got a large central screen here for climate controls and other functions. There's 2 USB-C charging ports, as well as a fold-down center armrest with access to 2 cup holders.
And for family buyers, the Model 3 Performance has 2 ISOFIX positions in the outboard seats, as well as 1, 2, and 3 top tether anchorage points. In my time with the car, I did install 2 seats for my kids, and there's plenty of room for both the seats and for them to clamber in and out of them.
Move to the front though, and the sports seats are a particular highlight, balancing comfort and ergonomics well. And it offers a level of electronic adjustability so you can maneuver this seat into the perfect driving position. Though I will call out that even in its lowest setting, I think the seats are still a little bit too high. Up front, storage is also plentiful, with a door pocket that will accommodate a large water bottle, as well as 2 cup holders, a deep storage cubby in here, a dual wireless smartphone tray, and an underarm storage cubby. There's also a glove box, but it's not opened in the traditional way. Instead, you have to dive into this touchscreen to open the box when inside the cabin. And if that sounds like an annoyance to you, ask yourself this. When was the last time you actually opened your glove box? Okay, I've run you through what the Tesla Model 3 Performance has to offer on paper. But in reality, living with this thing sets up its own set of challenges. By now, it should be obvious that Tesla doesn't like to do things conventionally, and nowhere is this more apparent than when you're inside the cabin.
Adopting a pared-back minimalist aesthetic, the layout of the Model 3's dashboard is clean and simple. Or, to put it another way, where's all the stuff?
There's no instrumentation, there's no head-up display, there's no steering wheel stalks, heck, there's not even a physical shift lever. Basically, every single car function is buried in this central 15.4-inch infotainment touchscreen, from opening the glove box to putting the car into park. And if you're still struggling to come to grips with backing up your photos on the cloud or home automation, this should give you pause for thought. You want to adjust the steering column? Touchscreen. You want to adjust the side mirrors? Touchscreen. You want to open the front boot from inside the car? You guessed it, touchscreen. To be fair to Tesla, if you own this car, you would only have to play with some of those settings once and then lock them to your profile. You would also get access to the Tesla smartphone app, which allows quality of life functionality like keyless entry and even opening that front boot from your phone. But there's no denying that the Tesla Model 3 forces you into interacting with it on its own terms, and traditional car inputs are thrown out the window. For example, this system doesn't offer support for Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Instead, you're stuck using the inbuilt satellite navigation and the handful of apps it has on offer. Luckily though, the touchscreen interface is fast and snappy, letting you jump between menus and functions lightning quick. And some of the apps that it does have on offer, like Spotify, actually work better through the screen rather than through Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. However, it does mean that users of navigation apps like Waze are left out in the cold because there's no support for it here.
With an always online connection, Tesla also promises frequent updates to the system that should add functionality. But you should never buy a product based on promised features that aren't already available out of the box. The screen can also get really busy as you bring up menus over the satellite navigation, juggle with the climate controls, throw on the indicator, and I do wish there was an easier way of just coming back to the home screen.
If you're the person that your family and friends call when they have Wi-Fi troubles, you won't have a problem coming to terms with the Tesla Model 3 interface. But if you are the person making that call, be prepared for a steep learning curve and a long adjustment period. Is it a deal breaker though? That's kind of hard for me to answer. For me, the tech-forward, touchscreen-heavy interface is neat, and it pushes the Model 3 more in line with a gadget or a device. But if you've been driving for decades at this point and you just want an EV to see you through your twilight years, this is probably a bit too much. And there are models like the Hyundai Ioniq 6 and Toyota BZ4X that make moving to an electric car less jarring and more comfortable. The first thing you have to come to grips with when driving a 2024 Tesla Model 3 Performance is just how different it is from almost any other car on the road. For starters, there's no instrumentation or head-up display, which isn't a nod to the Toyota Ruckus, but it's an effort to keep the Tesla's interior minimalist and clean. Instead, your speedo is actually found in the infotainment touchscreen, which takes a while to get used to, but is in your line of sight enough where it's not that hard of an adjustment. You also have to change your indicator habits because there are no stalks behind the steering wheel to indicate left or right. Instead, those functions are relegated to buttons on the steering wheel. Again though, it is a little bit fiddly and counterintuitive to begin with, but after some time with this car, I started to really come around to it and it even started to feel a bit natural. It's also helped by the fact that the indicators are clever and knows to turn itself off when changing lanes or taking a turn, meaning you don't have to hit that button again to turn it off. What I cannot get behind though is the lack of a physical shifter. By now, you should all know that this updated Tesla Model 3 has thrown tradition out of the window and placed the shifting function into the infotainment touchscreen, like all its other functions. Which means if you want to put it into drive, reverse, or park, you'll be swiping and touching along on this screen. In theory, it's a neat solution, but in practice, it's really unergonomic. And in my time with this car, I found myself on more than one occasion accidentally putting the car into park when wanting to go into reverse or drive. And it's especially egregious on 3-point turns. Call me a Luddite all you want, but this just plain sucks. With all these hurdles cleared though, what's the Tesla Model 3 Performance actually like to drive? Well, in a word, it's excellent, offering a level of comfort, performance, and engagement rarely seen not only in an EV, but in any car regardless of powertrain. Of course, straight line performance is phenomenal. And planting the right foot, it's met with instant acceleration that just pins you to the back of your seat. For those that don't want that insane acceleration all the time though, you can change the drive modes to chill or sport. otherwise known as Eco and Normal for those of us lacking Riz and don't speak Gen Z. Steering can also be adjusted between 3 different modes: light, normal and heavy, and in my time with the car I actually preferred the lightest setting, which made this Tesla Model 3 Performance easy enough to pilot around town without inducing an arm workout. On the topic of steering, the Model 3 Performance is, once again, excellent, feeling sporty and agile thanks to a very responsive feel. I will also call out this seating position, which I mentioned earlier as being a little bit too high for my tastes, but does allow great visibility at the front. You can see both of the bulging wheel arches, so you know exactly where the front wheels are placed. As for the suspension, the Tesla Model 3 Performance now features adaptive dampers, which is new in this model update, and can be adjusted between standard and sport. However, this is still nearly a 2-ton car with most of its weight in the floor, which means if you come up too fast to a bump or road imperfections, it can jiggle about a fair bit. Put the suspension into sport though, and the Model 3 really does hunker down and feel much more planted in the corners. Aiding the Model 3 Performance's sure-footedness are great Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tyres, measuring a whopping 275/35 in the rears and 235/30s in the front. The rubber is never overwhelmed by this powertrain as well, handling hard launches and high-speed cornering equally well. And to scrub speed, the Tesla Model 3 Performance's uprated brakes are more than up to task, offering a good amount of feedback and feel in the pedal. The pedal does take a moment to get used to though, because when you lift off the throttle, there's already a level of regeneration, and the brake pedal does get progressively bitier the more you press it down. While the level of regenerative braking cannot be changed in the normal touchscreen menu, the Tesla Model 3 Performance does offer a track mode that allows for that sort of adjustment, as well as tweaking handling characteristics and stability. But if you're going to track this car, keep in mind that the faster you go, the quicker this battery is going to drain. And how can I review a Tesla without talking about its autopilot semi-autonomous features? It's essentially just a rebrand of adaptive cruise control with lane centering, and in that regard, the system works fine. I've been in cars that have performed better, and I've been in cars that have performed worse. Leave your comments down below. Of course, tying this together is that wonderful all-electric powertrain. I've already talked about the incredible straight-line performance in this car, but the Tesla Model 3 Performance backs that up with engaging dynamics and a sporty feel, making it a genuinely great driver's car. But when you're not ready to have so much fun, the Tesla Model 3 Performance can also transform into a comfortable and capable commuter, offering a near silent driving experience and a serene ambience. I'll stop short of calling it premium, because to me, I don't think it's quite luxurious enough for that name. But in terms of a sedan that can be both sporty and comfortable, the Tesla Model 3 Performance is a bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing. Don't believe the hype. The Tesla Model 3 Performance isn't a perfect car, not by a long shot. But then again, what is? It offers up mind-boggling performance and a fun-to-drive charm that is hard to match at this price point, and wraps all of that up into a tech-laden all-electric package that can also be efficient. There is a caveat though, because you need a high degree of tech literacy or be willing to deep dive into the instruction manual to come to terms with it. I'll be honest, I didn't love this car when I first picked it up, but over time I overcame these teething problems and I grew to love the Tesla Model 3 Performance, and I think it's one of the best electric cars you can buy today. If you've liked this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to stay on top of all of Drive's YouTube content. And if you're in the market to buy this car or one of its competitors, be sure to hit up the Drive Marketplace. And for the full written review, of course, you can always head to Drive.com.au.